Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 322, our first exploration of Zero Month. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to talk about Green Arrow number 0, Action Comics number 0, G.I. Combat 0, Phantom Stranger 0, Green Lantern 0, Detective Comics 0, and Dial H for Hero 0. Big packed episode of lots of content in our first exploration of the event we know as Zero Month. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, they're doing that 50% off new DC trades and hardcovers. Great opportunity to get any of the new DC hardcovers and trades at an amazing discount. Want to remind everyone that besides doing all of your pre-order purchasing there, make sure to link up any digital purchases to DCBService.com. Because when you do that, you get 5% of each of those purchases towards DCB Service credit that you can use to buy any new items that you want to. So it's like getting extra cash for something you're already buying. Digital purchases don't cost any more that way, but it's a great way to support our show sponsor if you're doing digital purchases. And you get something cool free for yourself by building up that credit over time. Over at InStockTrades.com, this is month 9 of their end of the world sale, and it's 45% off all DC comics. Besides that, though, they're running a special on these DC Archives editions, which I don't know if you've seen these. These are very gorgeous hardcover volumes collecting classic DC comics, and they're 50% off. So it's just a great opportunity to get some savings from DCB Service and InStockTrades.com this month. And I want to thank both of those amazing websites for continuing to sponsor our show. I want to quickly shout out, there was a podcast that was doing a discussion on Batgirl that was coming up. And they sent me an email, and I meant to reply to it, and the email got deleted accidentally. It's one of those stupid things that you do. And I don't have the person's name. And I wanted to respond to it, or at least if the podcast had already been recorded, shout out the episode. So if you are that podcast or in contact with that podcast, you know what I'm talking about, please contact me at ragingbullets@gmail.com. I want to correct that problem, and I want to apologize in advance for that. I get a lot of emails during the course of the week from, both the podcast and from my own work and things like that. And this was an accident that totally, I haven't had happen in the entire almost 7 years we've been doing this show now. And I apologize. Sensei, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
Jim, our first chat, I want to talk about Green Lantern. We've been hearing about this for months, this new character, Baz, and who is he, what he's going to be like, and how are we going to feel about him? Because you and I both have talked many times on the show about how we have favorite Green Lanterns. We have favorite characters that over the years we've grown to know and love. And, I've talked about how I'm a Hal guy, but I love Kyle, I love John, I love Guy. These are characters that have been around forever. So when they're introducing a new Earth Green Lantern, a new Earth Green Lantern who basically that's Sinestro's ring, right? Or Hal's, then Sinestro's ring, right?
Yeah, that's the ring. That's Abin Sur's ring that went to Hal that Sinestro had for a little while, and now it's on him. Who knows where it's going to go after this, or who knows how long he's going to have it. This is a really cool way of dealing with a brand new Green Lantern, and I was glad to see how everything played out. When I first heard the news, I was like, okay, why are they doing this? Earth has plenty of Green Lanterns. Well, you start going through all the stuff going on in the Green Lantern universe, this adding a new character fits. And the fact that things are kind of goofy for him, things are a little bit different, with how he got the ring. What, we're not 100% certain what kind of power levels, what's he going to be able to do, what kind of training or just the general knowledge is this guy going to get for the ring. They really took the Green Lantern universe and decided, let's try something different. Let's tweak it a little bit. Let's have a little fun with it without throwing out anything, without changing anything, because the Green Lantern universe is such in chaos right now. It fits, and it's okay that he would get this ring.
Well, power levels we do know, because that's Sinestro's ring, which means it's a fully powered Green Lantern ring. So we know for sure what the power levels are, because that's Sinestro's ring, right?
I'm assuming it's Sinestro's ring, but we can't really even make assumptions based on power levels, because you never know what happened in the process of it going from Sinestro to him.
Well, it did give that error when he put it on. So what does that mean? Although what I'm thinking is the error is going to be key when it comes to what's going on with the Guardians. Yeah. I wonder if Baz is going to be able to have a big role in that, because his ring seems to be on some level disconnected. Maybe due to that error. I wonder if this will make Baz an MVP in the coming war.
Maybe give him an immunity to what's coming. Maybe the Guardians won't have as much control over his ring as they would other Lanterns or the Third Army. Maybe he's going to be the secret weapon against the Third Army.
When we talk about Baz, and as far as his longevity, we know this guy's going to be on Justice League of America.
Right.
This is a guy, and Johns has said that he's going to be around for a while. I mean, he has no plans. Actually, he didn't put an end date on him. He basically said that this is a character who is, as things play out, going to be a continuing character. What do you think about Baz? We've gotten to see his backstory, the trouble and hardship that his family went through after 9/11. What do you think of the character? Because he had some dark places that he'd been in. He was a car thief, but gets charged with terrorism, which wasn't the case. He genuinely was a car. I mean, I'm not saying, we're not patting him on the back for being a car thief, but he was falsely accused of being a terrorist. What do you think about Baz as a character? Are you liking him? Are you enjoying him? You and I started to have this conversation off the air, and you sounded like you had some pretty deep emotions when it came to Baz. So what are your thoughts on him?
It's a weird emotional play that I got going with this guy. I really like him. I really like the character, and I'm really excited for where this is going to go. Now, as a person, if he was a real life person, I would be the guy chasing after him. I would be the guy hunting him down. And I think for me, that's the interesting part about this whole character, that this is a guy that, when I'm reading the story, I'm like, this is going to make a really fascinating, character. This is going to make some really cool stuff coming down the line for Green Lantern. But as a person, I really don't like this guy. He, as you said, he is a car thief, flat out thief. This is, not a nice guy. He's got, there's a lot of going to be, I'm assuming, some anger management issues that we're going to see get unresolved that are going to come out through, possibly through the ring, which will make things even more interesting. We always talk about hanging out with the superheroes and being buddies and pals. I don't think Baz and I would be friends. I think we would sit there and we would be at odds with each other, because while he was wrongly accused, he isn't a terrorist. I completely understand what the guys who are holding him and why they were holding on to him, why they were still questioning him. Now, I personally do not condone waterboarding, torture, or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I understand these guys' mindset. I understand their logic behind not, by holding on to him, by continuing the question, especially the agent Thed. I love the fact that he just wanted to keep going over and over and over. He's like, eventually I'll get him to talk. Eventually I'll wear him down. And that mindset that they have going was something for me that I was like, yes, this is spot on. Because this is a horrible thing to say, so I'm going to just clarify that, but with guys who are dealing with the terrorism, dealing with Homeland Security, their biggest fear really isn't that they're holding an innocent person. Their biggest fear is the fact that if I let this person go, what if he turns out to be the next 9/11? Or what if he turns out to be the guy who would give me the information for the next 9/11? No one wants to hold an innocent person. Nobody wants to, deny someone rights. It's, not evil people, but the fear that they have going into this is the fact that what if I let the wrong guy go? What if I should have done this? I could have saved thousands of people's lives. And that's the mindset going through them. So I loved seeing these characters actually in their questioning, not just saying, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. This guy drove a truckload of explosives into a building that would have, detonated somewhere else. Now, they're not seeing the fact that he drove it away from people and he drove it into an empty building. Maybe they're looking at him saying, okay, he just messed up, or he wasn't completely in the know, but he knows somebody. He knows who built that bomb. He knows who initially planned the thing. We got to make sure that this guy isn't somebody who should slip away. And I loved seeing that determination and that characterization in them.
See, I think this is where our different occupations play into this. Because I'm looking at, and I'm not saying you're wrong for presenting it the way that you are. That's the way you see things because of your career. So I'm not knocking you at all with this. But I'm looking at the little kid. And I guess what was really, the one day later where, they're wiping off the graffiti on their place of worship. And then you see him standing up and protecting his sister who was being bullied. I mean, to me, that's like, oh, you got this stand-up guy who's like, he's seen his sister being bullied. Obviously, again, because of the way, with everything being played, there's a label that's on them. And, he's got to stand up, and I like that kind of thing. One of the things I want to see in this story is what led him down the path of becoming a car thief. Like, was he not able to get a job? Was he... Because I want to know what took him from being that kid who will stand up and defend his sister 5 years later to 10 years later, now all of a sudden being this car thief. I want to know, there's gaps there. There's a 5-year gap with him that I really want to know what was happening before I think I can make a judgment on Baz. I like the fact that the guy, when he's driving and realizes he's got a bomb in there, he could have jumped out of the car. He could have just ran away. If the bomb went off, realistically, he's not responsible for the bomb. That was somebody else who did it. He was protecting his own skin, getting away from a bomb. A lot of people would do that right away, going, oh my gosh, I've got a bomb in here. I'm going to get out of here. Because it wasn't his bomb. It wasn't his fault. To me, it shows a lot about his strength of character. He's still that same kid who'll stand up for his sister when he drives that bomb somewhere else. He's like, I didn't have anything to do with this. I need to take some responsibility for this. I'm just a car thief. I wasn't. And I mean, I'm not saying making light of the whole car thief thing. Really not. I mean, that's what he's doing is morally wrong. He should be, arrested for that, jail time, all that kind of stuff for being a car thief. But there's a difference between a car thief and a terrorist blowing up people. And, there's different levels of crime. And he's in one category, not another. And I can't help but feel sympathetic for him and his plight, how he's being really, because of circumstance, railroaded into a situation. And it's interesting to see him from that standpoint. I guess I'm still rooting for the kid who defended his sister, and that's the guy I'm holding on to. So I'm looking for glimpses of that guy. So it's funny when you're going through like how you especially I know with what you do with investigations and stuff like that, you're coming at it from that standpoint. I'm coming at it the standpoint of this is the big brother who, I'll see on the playground who I think is so cool that like will even acknowledge his sister, much less defending her. And I think that's kind of a neat thing about the character. So I'm looking for that guy. Which is I found incredibly interesting about the character that I think we've both found him engaging for different reasons, and I like that he reads on different levels. I think he's going to be a unique and interesting character to get to know. I do find that I want to know more about the character that I don't already know. And it's going to make me either feel more strongly on the positive end about him, or it's going to, make me want to go, Baz, what are you doing? It's that 5-year gap with him. It's funny how that's something that's really important to me that I want to gradually know. I don't need to know it now. It's a good introduction to the character. I like that they lay out a lot, but they also have left me with questions that I'm interested and intrigued in.
Well, that's another thing that I really did find fascinating. Now, I do see, we are seeing him in a very similar light. And while I say I wouldn't be his friend because of the whole everything going on, and I understand what the investigators are dealing with, I understand their mindset and how they're doing and what they're doing. I do see that similar qualities in him, that he was that kid who stood up for his sister. There is inside him, there is still that honorable kid, that person who will stand up and do what's right. Because you see that with he he became the car thief to help, save the money up for his sister, for the sister's kid, for the, his, brother-in-law who passed away when they were because they were doing the street racing. He's taking, responsibility for probably his part in the accident. So you still see that, character. You still see that, integrity. And I'm glad that we get that. And it's interesting. One of the biggest debates that happens constantly when dealing with the investigation for terrorist financing, for just the general Homeland Security type investigations, reviews, detaining of suspects, et cetera, is, are we making more terrorists? By our actions, by taking this innocent person, are we turning them into the next round of terrorists? Are we making these people who before weren't against us, who weren't our enemies, are we turning them against us by our actions and by our paranoia? And that is a huge concern and fear and debate and discussion. And as I said, one of the main driving forces in people's minds are not about the innocent people we have in custody. It's about I don't want to be the guy who let the next big bomber get away. I don't want to be the guy who didn't ask the right question that saved all these people. And it's kind of the clouding, and it's kind of blocking judgment sometimes. And then, again, you see that, and that was something I really loved when they introduced the federal agents, that you did see that conflict. You did see the one, the main boss who kind of just like, okay, go right to the waterboarding. Bam, just, we're done talking. We're done going through this. Let's just kick this up to the next level. And you got Agent Fed who's like, no, I can do this. Just give me time. And it was, again, he's another character that is really fascinating to me just because they referenced, that his family would still be alive. Makes me wonder where and how did his family die? There's this whole, again, more connections with the 9/11. And that was something that I loved this opening page, where you see them sitting in the living room. You see them, oh my God, I can't believe this, just like everybody else. And then just showing the close up on Baz's eyes, where they're showing the planes flying to the tower. That for me was a very powerful message. Then you flip the page and you see immediately the graffiti that was on their mosque, and that was completely, and that's what happened. It's a terrible thing, and we shouldn't blame everybody who is of this religion. That not every person who this is their faith is not the bad guys. The bad guys are the extremists. The bad guys are the ones who are actually targeting, trying to, for whatever their reasoning behind it, they're the ones who've declared war on us. It's not these innocent people who are getting, unfortunately, they're the collateral damage. They're the people who are getting caught in the crossfire. And it's a terrible thing. And you wish that you could have a nice, clean, quote unquote, clean war, but it's not. It's going to get dirty. It's going to get ugly. And we're seeing right here in a couple pages a really cool portrayal of how this got dirty on the home front.
One of the things I like as the issue progresses, when we see him get the ring, there was a pain involved in getting the ring. He screams when he gets it and when he breaks out, which I don't recall that being something that is a side effect of getting the ring on you. Usually you get that thing, you have this ability to overcome great fear, which I think Baz fits in the category of that, because we've seen him step up in those situations. So you've got this guy that's able to overcome great fear, but what was the pain all about? And what does that mean for him and his ring? Is that part of the error, I guess, which I was taking it to be that side effect was? Because that didn't seem like shock to me. It seemed like pain.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think there's something messed up with the ring. Whether it's in the transference process, whether the fact that it's not ordained by the Guardians that it moved, or the reasoning it left Sinestro and Sinestro's hand. Maybe all of the above have a part in it, but there's something different about the ring, and it's gonna, it's gonna define how he does what he does, who he is as a Green Lantern. And it's the mystery, the unknown, the what's going on here, where is this going to go, that's got me so excited for, I was pumped about Green Lantern universe. I was really enjoying what they were doing. This just kind of like turned this up to 11 for me. This again, I'm like, just when I've got my core favorite, my top of the book, top of the tier titles, bam, in comes Green Lantern, throws this on me. I'm like, okay, this is now one of the, this is now in the top again. It's, it was a solid read. It was a fun read, but it wasn't one of my top titles. Anticipation alone for what's going to happen with this guy has bumped Green Lantern up to one of my top tier books.
Really? So the Sinestro, because to me, this is continuing what I've already been enjoying. I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I thought this last year with Sinestro and Hal and everything that was going on there has kept this book just like incredibly engaging. And it's funny how 1 year later now they've done it again with Baz. Because I think when it was like revealed that Sinestro was going to be, the lead character in Green Lantern, that just got me super excited because it's a great exploration of Sinestro. This has done the same thing again, but in a very different way with Baz. Now we're going to get to see a spotlight focused on this guy. The page, like we're seeing Amanda Waller having a reaction to this, trying to get everything in the background, and we see that he's a local auto worker and, he's being accused of the explosion. And we've got Batman and Cyborg now. They're getting news reports, they're getting intel reports, I should say, about what's going on with Green Lantern and trying to figure out what does this mean for Hal? And the ultimate question is going to be, you got to imagine Justice League's asking themselves, did he have something to do with what happened to Hal? Or does he have information leading to what happened to Hal? So now we're going to have a Baz again, probably being confronted in a way that, not probably, it's got to be, right? There's going to be a confrontation for this, and it's not going to be pretty.
Oh yeah, this is going to get interesting because the Justice League are going to get involved. We've got the government involved, and once this new Green Lantern shows up, they're going to know it's him because the Green Lantern ring saved him. Now, that could be the whole thing behind the full mask. Maybe the Justice League is going to say, oh, no, this is a completely different guy and try covering for him. But the one thing I liked was the tattoo on the arm. Because when he's, all the issues, all the images of him, especially that full panel of the Third Army War, you can clearly see the tattoo's still there, and it's even a brighter green when he powers up. So for me, I loved that was in there, and I love the fact that they brought it up and they mentioned that it was against the religion, because it's again. And I don't know if I'm assuming this was the intention. I don't know, but one of the things
against the religion. You mean it's a symbol of his religion?
I'm not 100% certain on Islam. I am not an expert, nor do I ever even pretend to be. But I believe you're not allowed to do tattoos. I know with the Jewish faith, you're not. You're not supposed to. And I'm 99% certain with Islam it's the same type of rules, and that's why they even mention it in the book. They're haram in Islam.
Okay,
so I'm pretty sure that means it's a no-go. And one of the interesting things is if you are involved with the whole the holy wars, with you can actually break the laws if it's for part of your cover, and this is. Actually, a lot of undercover operatives will do stuff like this where they will do something outside of their norm, outside of their regular. Like an undercover U.S. military person will not have short hair. They'll have longer hair. They'll have facial hair. They'll do something that makes them look differently than what they normally would. Same thing with the different religions, where if there's something that's forbidden in the religion, they'll do it under the guise of it's part of the war effort. It's part of the effort. It's part of my mission. It's part because they're doing it for the mission. They're not doing it for their own personal benefit, for their own personal enjoyment. It's to throw the enemy off. It's to disguise them. So the agents mentioning the fact that he has it is kind of their little way of a nod saying, hey, you've got that. Don't think we know that's not, that's legit. That may not be legit. That could be just something to throw us off the trail, to throw us off your scent. We're on to you. And that's, again, more stuff that I was like, oh, that's cool that they threw that in there, that they added it, and they made note of it.
But see, and I agree with their saying that it's against his religion, but I totally believe that he had it tattooed on there, the word courage, because of everything he's had to be courageous for in life, everything life's thrown at him. And I think that's a symbol of inspiration for him.
Agree. I 100% agree. And that was even his line where he said, "You sound like my father." His father probably gave him grief about this, saying, "You can't do that." He's like, this is, what I have to do, who I am. So, and I've known, plenty of people who have had a friend of mine has the Star of David tattooed, even though it's, against the religion, but his is done, again, same reasoning where it was, this is who he is. This is, he's permanently putting it out there that,
right.
he is Jewish. This is who he is. This is his faith. And it's funny because it's against his religion as well that, but he's still doing, and he still did that. And that was, it was for his own personal throwing it out there. And I believe, Baz had that same type of mindset, that same type of strength, because you see that when he's in the airport and he's getting searched. And he was part of the quote-unquote random screening. Let's be honest, he wasn't random screened. They saw, they saw him and said, okay, let's take a look at him. It's part of the reason why people like my mom don't get stopped. They go right through because they don't fit any of the profiles. They don't fit anything that has happened in the past. And they're like, okay, just go through. Oh, hold on, you wait right there. Every single time he goes to the airport, every single time he probably goes somewhere where there's security, he's probably searched. And and after a while of being told, hey, don't worry, it's just a formality. What are you afraid of? It's that accusing him. And I love the fact that they threw that little bit of, oh, you got nothing to be afraid of, right? There was just some really just cool moments that are just a little one-line boom, boom, boom like that just had me going, yes, oh, that's neat.
Now, I don't think the message waiting is a throwaway. No. I think, and what I mean is, I think the message was sent by either Sinestro or Hal.
Yeah, when they disappeared, didn't they focus and concentrate on a message?
Yeah. So now Baz
there's a message
has it
from Hal and Sinestro to whoever gets the ring, saying this is what's going on. Now, when and how will Baz be able to get access to it? What will he do when he hears the message? Will he seek out the Justice League? Or I'm thinking Baz is going to be scrambling from the get-go. He's going to be bobbing, weaving, sticking and moving. Both heroes, government, everybody is going to be coming after him, and that's where I want to see how things calm down, if you will, how things get where he gets settled into the the superhero universe. Things will never really calm down for him, but they'll get to a point where he's either part of the universe or accepted, or just maybe they have him around to keep an eye on him. I'm not sure where they're going to go with him, but it's that I want to see that process. That's something I'm really looking forward to, and I want to see who's the first hero to step up and say, hey, everything's going to be cool. Let's just work this out. And, I want to see who the first calm head is that approaches him.
I think it's going to be his. I think whatever is leading to the formation of a new Justice League. I think his initial meetings with. I mean, we've seen teaser art of his initial meetings with the Justice League, where there's the Justice League are fighting people like Hawkman. They're fighting people like him. I think those teasers are just kind of an implication, like we used to get in the past with those ones leading up to the big events. I think that teaser was really implying that there's a number of characters in and it's funny how a number of those characters like Hawkman and him both wind up on the same team outside of this. So,
especially with Trevor. I'm assuming in the leadership role,
or Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, definitely one of those two in the command position. But I don't think it's going to be Martian Manhunter, just because he's more standoffish. He's more keep in the background. I see him having Steve be the front, be the the leader. At that
he has been the leader before.
I know, but I think this Martian Manhunter wouldn't. If you just see how he dealt with Stormwatch, I don't see him stepping up and saying, I am the leader. It's going to be, my money's on Trevor.
See, I think when he left Stormwatch, it opened the door for him to take a new path. So I don't know. I mean,
I'm saying someone's a reluctant leader.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. Sometimes a reluctant leader winds up being the best.
Yeah.
And in his case, here's the question that I have for you. How reluctant is he going to be after leaving Stormwatch? You're making an assumption on his mental state after leaving Stormwatch. I don't think we know what that's like. He left there, so how aggressively is he seeking his new direction?
Again, I don't know.
So, I mean,
and as you said, I am making a big assumption here, and you know what happens when you assume, so could very easily just fall on my face for this one. But I don't know. I kind of like, just this intro to this character, what we know about the others. I'm really looking forward to the new Justice League book.
Yeah, I am too. I think that's going to be. I like the team lineup. It's an interesting dynamic, and they're characters who I wouldn't have in a million years put together the way that they have. But then when you see them all standing there, you're like, well, that'd be a cool book. And I like that. I like when sometimes they'll throw together a team that if you asked me on paper if I would have made that, no, I wouldn't have. Yet they're all interesting characters and heavy hitters.
Now, question for you. Mm-hmm. When we get the ending of the issue, we have that member of the Third Army. They're already on Earth. Now, are they spreading on Earth, or are they going to Earth first, or are they going to spread out? Is this happening all over the galaxy, or are they only on Earth?
I'm guessing all over. I'm making a guess. I don't think we know that yet, but I'm guessing the Third Army is going wherever the Green Lanterns are.
Yeah,
I think it's not an accident that he happens to be heading into an area where Baz is.
Yeah,
I think they're
following
the
gunning
rings.
for any rings and take the rings, etc.
Right. Can we talk a little Detective Comics?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I really loved this issue because, it's in the Himalayas. It's going into Bruce's training. I like that there's, we've been told for years that Bruce did this extensive training, which means there's a lot of untold, untapped stories to talk about with what his training looked like. And this is really a pivotal training because we get to see the dual sides of Bruce. And I don't think Bruce has ever given up that heart that he's had. I think he's buried it. But we see that side of him, that emotional side of him that wants a human connection, wants a love, that is his parents' son. Because, his parents were warm, caring people. So that has to be a part of him. No matter how much the hardship of being Batman, the hardship of seeing his parents die affected him, that little boy is still in there somewhere. And I love when there's these stories that give us those glimpses of that guy. That guy that in Batman and Robin can have a movie night with the fam. That's that guy. And I think we're seeing more of him in modern-day Batman storytelling. I like that we see, though, in his past, what has made him so hard. How every time he opened up his heart, it comes back to bite him. Opening up his heart for this one girl, let her into the place where she ends up killing the master. These little things that end up happening along the way because he doesn't listen to his training. He doesn't, distance himself from love, from trust. And once he hardens himself, he can't be hurt. He becomes this symbol, this agent of change, and he's somehow set apart from everybody else, which usually works for him, but it sometimes fails. Like this is what Aquaman was talking about in Justice League, how, Batman doesn't have that kind of welcoming personal dynamic, as far as for building a team. And that does fail against him in those areas. But yet we see Team Batman, where he's very effectively rallied the troops from time to time. It's just that they all end up going off afterwards because he doesn't give them that warm, fuzzy high five. Yeah. Bruce is a very complex character. And I think, to me, the strongest Batman stories are where writers will tackle the multiple layers of who Bruce Wayne is, that he isn't just that hard-edged, cold guy, that there is a heart in there, a caring heart that's been kicked a lot of times, but still will from time to time take chances. It's just that they, unfortunately for the poor fella, go horribly wrong.
Yeah,
you root for him.
Just bad luck with women, man. I thought I was bad, but you know what? I think Bruce has got it worse than me sometimes. And we laugh about Tim with his issues that he has with people and friends. I was sitting there, I'm reading this, and I'm like going, oh, that's kind of cool. Just the discipline. Yeah, the training. And as soon as they introduced the female character, I was just like, oh no, this is not going to end well for Bruce. And it doesn't, and it shows part of the pain. It shows part of why he is detached why he is that standoffish, why emotions make you weak, just that mindset, that the Dark Knight, the brooding Batman, all of this stuff, you can kind of see some more birth of it. It wasn't just the fact that he witnessed his parents dying. It was while he was in training, he had moments like this. You know, this wasn't the only time this happened to him. Yeah. You know, he got close to somebody else and something got in the way, somebody got hurt. So, you know, and there was this a constant reinforcement of the watch your emotional attachment, don't, you know, fall in love, don't let yourself out there, just the constant reinforcement to it, and all of that will take away from the mission. I loved seeing that. I loved getting another glimpse of why Bruce is Bruce, why he is the brooding guy. It wasn't just a childhood situation, it was adulthood situations as well that kind of messed him up.
This is great writing and art. I really love the duality of the master and his wife, where you see him in that segment where he's, you know, sitting cross-legged on the ground, and it's really cold, and he's having to learn how to really gain from the inside control of warming his body. And we see him, like, you know, make that puddle around himself, and I really love those moments because it's, to me, it's the will and the strength of Batman is something I've always loved, and that comes from the mental dominance of the guy. It's why we believe this guy can stand toe-to-toe with these metahumans and find a way to continue to fight on and find a way, in spite of overwhelming odds, to somehow succeed in situations that a normal man shouldn't. To the training that he goes through, the discipline that he goes through. Those are all things that it should be superhuman, you know, what Batman does. And it's something as a hero, I like it because he's this human guy who manages to do that. But then we see the wife, you know, saying, okay, you know, you're cutting yourself off from your emotions, not letting yourself feel these things. But, you know, she's pointing to him saying, you know, there is a relevance to that softer side. There is a what are you fighting for in those moments. I really like that about her. You know, she's saying, you know, you're training with my husband, and he's telling you to do these things, but you can't forget this. And she's almost providing, like, she's the other side of the coin. And you can see why the master would be with her, because she provides him a balance that he clearly, if he was left to his own methods only, he wouldn't have in his life. And with Bruce, it really is an arguing of his two sides. In those 2 pages, in those 2 moments, you really see a real battle between those two. And we see which side wins. The master's side, the side of Bruce that he's training, ultimately wins out. Not because the other side isn't there for Bruce, but because circumstances have forced him to push that side down. But when you push something down, it's still a part of you. It's still a part of who you are. No matter how much you try to squash out that caring element of yourself, it's either you have it or you don't. He has it. It's there. And when we see it as fans, we geek out because we know that that's at his core, that little boy, that caring guy is who he is. And that's somebody who I connect with. You know, I always want to connect with Batman. I want to, you know, it's funny, as a kid growing up, Robin was the one that was my gateway into, like, he was my chance to be Batman's riding buddy, to be there hanging out with him, buddy cop with him and all that. And I grew up with the Adam West Batman, who was certainly the more friendly and accessible Batman, you know, so to speak. But I always loved the Dark Knight, you know, and that was something that became more prevalent in the comics. There was something about that dark edge to him that I found engaging, and the idea that Robin was kind of that one that kept pulling him back to the light. Robin's the one that actually brings him back to this person that the wife is connecting with.
Well, the wife is really just trying to keep him weaker. She's trying to encourage the emotion so that he will pursue something with the female assassin. So the wife isn't trying to teach the other side of the coin. The wife is just thinking for herself.
No, but that part's there. She wouldn't be trying to attack. And let me clarify that. I agree with what you're saying. She's doing something underhanded. Amen. Totally agree with you. But she does know that element is there for him. That this is something that he's fighting against. Because, like, is she going to try to appeal to something that isn't there for the man? No. She's going right after the doorway, that weak spot of him. And it was during my journey when I was reading this, I realized in that segment, and even when you do your multiple read-throughs, this really is the duality of Bruce. She is playing off the duality of Bruce, as most women do. I mean, this is the stuff that we saw that, Morrison was most recently playing around with the various girlfriends of Bruce who wind up turning on him. This is stuff that it's not an accident that we end up seeing this happen from time to time with Bruce. And why? You're right. He's unlucky in love. I'm not disputing what you're saying. I guess what I'm saying is she's playing off of something that's genuinely there with him, appealing to something that's genuinely there with him. When you take the situation with him, this is how Bruce is perceiving it. He's seeing the wife trying to appeal to one side of him and the husband appeal to another. And you're right. It goes, I mean, we haven't gotten to the point yet. We're going to talk about where he really gets stabbed in the back, not just by the girl who he's falling for, but by the wife. Who seems to be, like in this case, so caring and so touching on this little boy. And that's really who she's once again smacking. It's the little boy who's really been hurt so bad when his parents died. I guess that's why I'm focusing so much on the little boy, because that becomes the area of weakness. I think somebody's compassion a lot of times can be their strength, but it also can be an area that's manipulated. And I think there's a lot of compassionate people who lose that side of themselves when they've been wronged and manipulated because of that compassionate side, taken advantage of. And in this case, he's being clearly taken advantage of and manipulated by that side of him. So, yeah, I don't want to make light of the fact that you're right, 110% what you're saying. We have to warrant the fact that what the wife's doing is not on the up and up. She's really sticking it to him. But I was coming at it more, this is how Bruce is seeing it. He's seeing her as this person appealing to this side of him, this other part of him that he's burying because of the husband. So that's I was coming at it from Bruce's standpoint versus the reality of what the wife was really doing, if it makes sense.
Oh, definitely makes sense. And it's kind of neat because some of the best cons are the hard cons. And it's not even just a love con. It's what you're talking about. We're playing off of the sympathy of the little boy, finding that little weakness and just that one little part of who they are and just exploiting it. And it was something that I really was impressed with how she was written, and because she wasn't just this greedy old woman who wanted all the money. There is a level of evil to her. There is a level of strategery, if you will, on her part. And I always love the intelligent villains. I always love it when the bad guys aren't just cut and dry. I'm going to stab you in the chest now with a knife. No, she was playing multiple levels. She was playing the multiple con because she was thinking long term. If she would have stabbed the master, eventually somebody would have asked questions. What happened to him? Now she's got her cover. An assassin broke in to steal his money and killed him. Oh, how did the assassin get in? Well, the stupid American left the door unlocked. It's all the American's fault. Snuck in through his window. She's completely layering the overall, so she's setting herself up. She's protecting herself. And I loved seeing that. And that was, again, I was completely swerved on her part in it, because when I was initially reading it, I'm completely thinking how Bruce was perceiving it. I was in that same boat. I'm seeing the yin and the yang between the two of them. That's why they're such a team. He goes with no emotion. She goes with the emotion. And together they form the perfect soldier, the best warrior there is. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of a cool thing. And then like, oh no, it's a complete swerve. Surprise. And I was just completely flown, completely discombobulated. It was absolutely wonderful read, because when you're sitting there and you're so focused and you think, I know exactly what's going to happen. Nope, you're completely wrong. Oh, here's a whole nother level to the surprise to you. Hey, enjoy. It just really, her characterization was awesome. Too bad we'll never see her in another title, but you know what? Her one appearance was outstanding.
And pivotal to what made Batman who he is. And that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about this. And that's why I was so focused on it, because like you said, in order to understand the swerve, you have to see why it was possible. And that they were appealing to at the core who he is. And I just loved at the end where the Master's saying, this is what closeness will bring you. And I think the Master's wrong, because I think it's closeness with people who you don't know, with people who at the core you don't know if you can trust. I don't think there's anything wrong with, I think we've seen Bruce make horrible mistakes because he's followed the Master's edict. where he winds up hurting himself and hurting those around him, because if he had just teamed up, if he had just butted up, I mean, look back at, Final Crisis and, leading up to all that stuff with Brother Eye and the crazy things that were going on there. All of that stuff was happening because Bruce was paranoid, not trusting, and those are things at his core that Bruce has made huge mistakes with in his past. Now we're seeing this Bruce now getting stabbed in the same way in the heart and building at the core. Why is this guy so untrusting? Why does he have such issues with it? And that's something where I think it just pulls at the heartstrings, and you can see why this guy so becomes the man that he does, that will don that mask and so pull himself into that world. I think the mask is another way to push further down the little boy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and one of the things about this issue that I loved was they let the art tell a lot of the story. They let the art really build up to the powerful moments. When Bruce is sitting there laying, just thinking about her, and he finally goes, "I gotta go see her. I gotta do this," and he bursts out. Those panels leading up to it, it was all just artwork, and it's you can kind of hear the building music going, growing as you go from panel to panel, zooming in closer up until the point when finally you just have the empty bed and you see Bruce running through the night. I love those kind of moments in this. Just because, again, you don't always need to have the inner dialogue. Inner dialogue is cool when it's used correctly, but right here, no words, no nothing, just the artwork telling you the story. And this was, again, I was like, wow, there were some cool, and especially the shadowy scenes where you kind of see the bats hanging from the rafters over his bed. Again, more foreshadowing as to who he is and what he's about and what he'll become. I was just like, oh, that's kind of, those were something. And again, I'll admit, I didn't notice them on the first read-through. It was on the second read-through. I see the shadowy figures. You keep seeing images of bats throughout the whole issue. It was just little boom, boom, boom here, that second and third read-throughs that you pick up.
Hurwitz and Daniel did a great job on that. I just thought it was just a great writing and art team. I thought that they really told a great story there. But I would be remiss if we didn't talk about this Alfred feature in the back.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Martha's family coming in. They're looking at an opportunity to get their hands on that fortune. And it's funny how Martha, knowing this, and her husband knowing this, set up a way to protect their son, to protect the direction that they had for the family. I'm a big fan of, you say Bruce delved so heavily into this intense training. He would be off the grid completely. I like that we see in this moment because it's not a part of the story that's often told. I thought this was something that Nolan did a really good job of expressing in Batman Begins. I really like how this expands on that concept even further and fits it into the DCU. This idea that Alfred really had to put a lot on faith that, and hope that Bruce would come back. And even when he's questioning things, it was his determination to not let his duty go to the wayside. This chance, because really that Mr. Shaw, when he's in there, is painting an interesting picture of Alfred, saying, hey, you can give up on this and go back to your life. Be the guy that you used to be. Go back on the stage. All these things that you gave up by doing this, why are you doing this to yourself? You can just give up on this now. Let our family take what's rightfully ours, and look what you can go back to. And we're even going to be able to kind of, at this point, pay you off. You're going to make big money off of this, which I think is really, really great. Because they would try to appeal to that humanity of Alfred, which is something that I just thought was really interesting.
Oh, I gotta agree completely. I loved the smarminess of this guy. I really just wanted to reach into the book and smack him a couple times, and I was so glad to see Alfred just rage up at him, oh, you want to come after me? Come on, bring it. And that was something I was like, yes, because this guy was just a complete and total, that I so wanted to see him get beaten up. I wanted to see him get hurt. I wanted to see, the Beagle, the Alfred who was the government agent who knows how to, throw down and put a hurt on somebody. I wanted to see him just go 10 rounds with this guy. But again, Alfred is more classy than I am, so he's not going to go to the physical side, but he isn't going to let this guy know, you can't intimidate me. You can't come in here and make threats against me. You got nothing on me. You are a little insignificant little man. Get lost, get out of here. I'm going to throw you out on your ear if you don't leave on your own free will. And that was, for me, was again a really cool moment. But those wonderful little subtle art moments. You kind of see the guy holding the urn, which is probably one of the Wayne's ashes, maybe, or somebody of significance. And he's kind of just, casually talking as he's looking at it. For me, if there was something valuable or something precious like that, I would be a little bit more respectful of it. But, this guy isn't that type of person. This guy's a jerk. So you got to have the little add-on stuff just to make sure we all know what kind of slime he is. And the fact that the family would send him over repeatedly kind of lets you know exactly what her family's like. And it was some really cool moments that it does have you always, kind of always have me wondering, was there anybody else who could have been in there? What were the family doing while Bruce was gone? Well, we're seeing what they were doing. They were going after the money, but Alfred was the guardian. Alfred was the protector of the Wayne legacy, of Bruce's legacy, knowing in his heart Bruce would come back. I loved seeing just that loyalty and just that fire that is Alfred.
One of my favorite moments was the telling look when Alfred looks at the picture of little boy Bruce and then just shuts his eyes and there's that pain of, where are you? Are you still alive? And then Bruce shows up. This led to just what I thought was another terrific moment. I love these Bruce and Alfred moments. This again is the little boy, when he hugs Alfred and you see this moment where I've been training for what? Everything, Alfred. Everything I could possibly think of and more. I know the last few years must have been horrible for you, not knowing if I was alive or dead, but I couldn't let anyone see what I was building myself into. I couldn't let them see what I've started to plan. I know that you might find it hard to forgive. And he's looking around the room at everything. This is Alfred digging for evidence and things like that. You never stopped believing me, Alfred, did you? Not for an instant, Master Bruce. And just that moment. And the fact that he's going to share this plan with him right now and how it changes everything. Just a gripping. I really loved how that all played out. These are those hoorah Batman moments for me. And it is because he's this dark guy who we don't normally see, embracing that guy who he's close to, that guy who's been family to him. I really love that. I mean, it's just something I think is special about the Batman universe when you make a guy this Dark Knight and make him distance himself from everybody, and you see the true heart of him. I think this is the real guy when you see that moment with Alfred. I've always maintained that when we see Bruce with Alfred, we see the real man. That's something that I geek out in these moments.
Oh, big time. Big time. And you get that good feeling that, it's... And on one hand, I always do feel bad for Batman just because of the tragedy he's had in his life, and that he has no pleasure, he has no enjoyment. Well, here you do see there is some light in the life. It's not just pure darkness, and it is his dealings with Alfred. And I love that moment when he gives him the hug, and just, it's good to see you. I missed you too. And it's a little bit, they did the lettering a little bit smaller, where it was more of a whisper and just that more calmer, sensitive, just that moment. And even when he's like, "You never gave up on me. I knew I could always count on you." It's that whole trust issues that Bruce does have. Well, here he's seeing the one person he can always trust. And this is why present-day Batman, Alfred's the confidant. Alfred's the one who can tell him, "Hey, you're acting like an idiot. Snap out of it. Get your head back in the game." Because in the core of who these two are, Bruce always knows, I can trust Alfred. Alfred will never let me down. And it's that faith in each other that it was just, I loved seeing just the very beginning of it.
It was a great book.
Oh, yeah.
Jim, I'd like to talk right now about Dial H #0. This has been an interesting book for me because I've understood the concept. But Dial H was something, the original Dial H run, I got in the showcase volume. I came very late to the dance. I read the Hero series, the one that was put out by Will Pfeiffer from DC years ago. It was a concept that for me is very new and very fresh. I've really been enjoying this book as it's been going along with the dialing up these wacky, weird heroes and the adventures that this guy's been going on, how he's very real world and grounded, how he's really just a guy who's a mess. I've enjoyed that. This issue 0 for me, I think, has upped my appreciation for the direction of this series because it reveals something that honestly I wouldn't have wanted to know right from the get-go. We find out what actually happens when they dial by going into the past of this concept of dialing up heroes. We go back to, Stone Tablet being used as a dial, as a wheel to bring it in. And you see this hero being brought up, the bumper car girl being brought on over. And I love how we find out, and let's just talk about what the reveal is. When their powers are brought over, when this person takes on that role, that makes the person in another world normal, which means they could be in the middle of trying to save lives. They could be in the middle of fighting a villain, and either, I'm guessing, they could die, or those around them could die. They could be in the position to, save lives, and it goes horribly wrong because of this dial. And the person on this end, in fairness to them, has no clue what's actually happening. That was something that I really liked about this, because we have this person coming out of her world for revenge. And we're not knowing why until we get the reveal. So you've got this hero who now has, because they've been slighted by this person stealing their powers, has come back and become the villain in many ways, justified or not. And here's the funny part. This is where you get really tricky. If somebody's tapped into our world and caused death by taking something away from you, are you justified to go after them with extreme prejudice? And does it mean as much? Because they're from another world. That's an interesting play on morality, isn't it?
Oh, big time. Because, one, it's involuntary. It was an accident. You can look at a lot of different ways of justifying what happened. But you know what? You can say, oh, it was an accident. My bad. Sorry. That still doesn't bring back the dead people. There's still something with, we need a little justice here. Now, is the justice bringing them back to your world, having them stand trial? Is the justice going into their world and opening up a can of whoop-ass on them for what they did to you? That's the moral question. Now, is, bumper car, Sally, or, is she justified in coming over and seeking vengeance? Yes and no. She does cross the line and she stops being the hero, but maybe she stopped being the hero on her world when she witnessed all the people dying and all the people she couldn't help right when she needed her powers. It's a tough call to make. Now, in the end, a hero, a true hero, true bred and born and raised, et cetera, is going to want justice, not revenge. But you can't really say she's wrong for what she wanted. She was slighted. She was wrong. She was going after her not to, she wasn't really seeking. She wasn't seeking justice. She was seeking vengeance. And that's when you start crossing that line. That's when you start leaving the hero line. And that's why her friend came over to stop her, because he was the hero. He said, no, you can't do this. This isn't right. What they did to us was wrong, but killing innocent people, going after this person who clearly doesn't have any way of taking your powers, is a wrong thing to do.
Well, the funny part is, if our person on this side had just listened to him and given him the time of day, it might have gone completely differently.
Yeah.
There might have been an opportunity for him to reason with Bumper Carla. I really liked how that all played out, because it was very real world. It was one mistake after another, and it really involves nobody talking and listening first. I know I'm going to butcher this, Leotis. Her big problem was she had an opportunity to get information and never took it. Or at least, started to try to take it when it was too late. I love that she was stopped by Bumper Car. Am I the only one that found that a bit funny?
Oh. And it's, again, you see just the look of, in Bumper Carla, just the look of anger, the look of rage. And it was just something I was just like, man, this is kind of cool. This was completely unexpected, complete shock for me. And I was just like, wow, I never even thought of this would be a possibility of where this would, or how they would do this. And the one question I had running through my head, and I was going to ask you about it, had they ever explored anything like this before? Had they ever talked about the origin of the power, or where it comes from, or how it happens?
I haven't read everything, Dial H, so I'd know. Nothing I've seen, but I'm not going to say that they never went this route. I'm enjoying this being explored now. So to answer your honest question, I haven't read everything. So I don't know. I have the showcase volume. I started reading it, And it's like anything. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy it. It's trying to find time when we're following, the current monthly books and miniseries and, original hardcovers that come out, trying to jump back and find time to reread some of the older material. I do that over the summer. I'll start reading some things from time to time, but I just haven't been able to get all the way through it yet. And it wasn't because of quality. My enjoyment was still high. I love the concept of this Dial H. I think it's cool. I'm really enjoying the new book and its modern feel. Like, this is a title that I enjoyed right from the start. The first few issues of it really grabbed me. But it's only, I think, improved the more I've gotten to know about this world and what's going on. This issue in particular, I thought this twist was something that really made the book that much cooler. Because this is something that's not going to go away. And I do think we see our hero. It's making a lot more sense to me what we've seen in the later issues of this run leading up to it. I think we're seeing him tap into the fact, like, he's starting to know the adventures of some of the heroes that he's taken on the role of. Like, what was it, Boy Chimney?
Yeah.
I think he got to see some of his adventures and who he teamed up with. But these are things that he didn't do as Boy Chimney. It's him tapping into the life of Boy Chimney. So I'm wondering if this guy, our current guy, is going to be the first one that's going to be able to maybe communicate with the other side, build relationships with the other side, good and bad. I don't think everyone's going to be as welcoming.
Well, especially if they're taking it at the wrong time.
Right.
You're going to run into moments like this with Carla because, and it wasn't even just one person. She said so much blood, so much dead on your head. There was so many people who died because she lost her powers, but at the worst possible time for her to have the powers taken from her, that's when it happened. And you're going to run into times like that. And I would love this because I wasn't even thinking that he was going to be able to cross the bridge over and maybe even go into the other world, or who knows where this is going to go. But yeah, this issue really has me enjoying the series more. This was one of my questionable issues. Well, my questionable series where I was like, okay, what's going on? Yeah, I'm enjoying the read through, but I didn't have any passion. I didn't have any fire for the series. And this kind of concepts here really are pulling me in. And I thought it was a cool, character piece, and there was some neat, people going on with who they were and where they were going and what they could become in the future. But this issue kind of really gave me another side of it, a whole nother swerve, a whole nother direction that this story can go to, especially now thinking maybe this guy's going to cross into the other world. Maybe there could be something that could happen that way. Maybe even communication, who knows where it's going to happen and where and how it's going to go down. It has me curious to read more of this stuff.
Yeah, it's a book I've been in. I know you and I were in different places when we last talked about this book. For me, it's only enhanced, and it sounds like it's done that for you as well. Even though you were in a different place about the book, it was an issue that it's funny how these Zero issues overall, because we didn't really talk about overall feeling about Zero Week. Well, I really enjoy the concept of Zero Week overall. I think it's every one of the issues presented has, I thought, been very unique in what it reveals, and has enhanced my excitement for the series. Do you have had any that have kind of fell flat for you?
No, everything and Dial H is a prime example of it. It was a series that I was reading, but I wasn't passionate. This got me energized. This, really energized it. And same thing as we talked about when we talked about Green Lantern, how it really fired me up. There's a bunch of titles here where I'm sitting there like, yeah, I want to know what's going on now. I gotta see the followation of this. I gotta see continuation of this. This is some cool stuff. I'm really enjoying the Zero issues. I'm really enjoying the fact that they waited a year before they threw them out there and they gave them to us. So it's, again, for me, they are handling the New 52. They're firing on all cylinders. This is something I am really enjoying, and I want, I'm really glad how they did this. The decisioning, the direction they're going with this. This is something that has me passionate and, really energized to read my comics.
I want to see the followation of it, too. I love when you come up with your new words.
You know what I meant, right?
I do. I knew exactly what you meant. I might start using that regularly now. I kind of like it. Followation.
Just don't use it at school, because all you need is your kids to start saying it. They say followation to their parents, like, "Where'd you learn that?" "Mr. Whalen taught us."
My third grade teacher taught me followation. That's great. I usually don't do emails on the show anymore because of the show voicemail line, but one of our regular callers, Jamie Dunst, sent me an email, and he was feeling under the weather and didn't want to try and make it through a coughing fit, so he sent me this really cool email with just his feedback on some of the recent Zero issues. So I want to shout this one out, and this is from Jamie. Green Lantern Corps number 0. I really dug this issue a lot. It gave Guy a different origin, but one I think is very interesting. We see that he has two siblings, Gerard and Gloria. Seems the GG runs in the family. I also like the history Guy's family has with the Baltimore Police Department. The beef that Guy and his father have seems very interesting, and this aspect of Guy's personal life is something I really hope plays a part in future issues because I really enjoyed it. I also liked his first meeting with Hal Jordan. He called him Harold, and it was very funny stuff. Batman and Robin number 0. This was awesome. I have wanted Damian the toddler years since forever, and I was not disappointed in this issue one bit. I love the panel where Damian finds the cape and cowl and says to his mama that he's the Bat, which is another thing I found odd. I'm surprised that Damian called Talia mama as a toddler. For some reason, I always pictured him calling her mother, but I liked it. It showed a different dynamic between the two characters early on in Damian's life, and I enjoyed it. Batgirl number 0, another top-notch issue. Again, a bit different in Batgirl's origin and why she put on the costume to begin with, and also the costume itself, but again, seemed to work very well within the story. Of course, the ending of the story was very intriguing, and now I can't wait to read the next issue. Batman number 0. The main story was good. I liked seeing Bruce still early on in his career. I liked that he wasn't exactly Batman yet, and the gang of Red Hoods was very interesting, and seeing how the main story ends, they will be playing a big role in next year's story, which is cool. The backup story was very intriguing. We get a glimpse of Barbara, Tim, and Jason before they encounter the Batman, and I loved it. Not sure what this means for their actual time in the role of Robin or Red Robin, but now more than ever, I'm very curious to get those number 0 issues to find out. Again, sorry I couldn't do this in voicemail. I just don't think I could get through without coughing up a lung. Love the show, and I'll talk to you soon, Jamie Dunst. I just wanted to shout that out and encourage everyone to please consider calling the show voicemail line. We'd love to have you part of this discussion on Zero Month.
Now I can get out of here.
Jim, I want to talk about Green Arrow number 0. I've been enjoying Green Arrow since it's been rebooted. I haven't been, like, through the roof. I haven't hated it. I've just been it's been a book that I've been kind of enjoying. You know, it's just been kind of falling in the middle. And Green Arrow is a character for me that I love. So for it to be just kind of falling in the middle is kind of like not normal for Green Arrow. I've been looking for that excitement from Green Arrow. 0 for me pumped it up. It's funny how a change of art. It's not that I thought the art was bad before. I enjoyed it, but I really loved it in this. I loved the story in this. We got the origin of Merlin. We get to see a little bit more of Ollie's background. All of these things that, like, start to feel very Green Arrow for me now, because we haven't really seen an arch nemesis kind of come into the piece. And I feel in this we see some of the truly flawed Ollie that's going to come back to haunt him later when we start seeing him be more competent and more, having to deal with the demons of his past. I think these are things that are criteria that I think are very important and essential to Ollie. The whole Merlin thing was really my latch-on point for all this. I thought the art was beautiful. I thought the story was really well done. This 0 issue, I felt like when I was reading this, I'm like, this is what I've been looking for with Green Arrow. I don't know if you're in the same place I'm in with this book. I haven't hated it. I haven't been... There's been something missing from Green Arrow. It's been a good book. It hasn't been a great book. So I'm not throwing it under the bus. It's been a good book, but Green Arrow to me is a character who I should feel like it's a great book. This felt like a great issue for me. Did you have that same experience with it? Or I mean, maybe you've been in a different place with Green Arrow all along than I've been. Where are you at?
Well, I'm probably around the same level of enjoyment of Green Arrow and just wondering where it was going to go. And I was, again, it was another one of those titles where I wasn't really passionate about it. I would read it, I would enjoy it, like, oh, that's kind of neat, and I'd read it through a couple times, just for my normal artwork and the read through and just the general whatnot behind the enjoyment. But there wasn't any fire, there wasn't any passion. And this one, again, artwork, of course, is absolutely beautiful, but I really, really enjoyed just the use. It's again origin of Ollie and the origin of Merlin. Just showing Ollie's flaws, bringing up the stuff that makes Ollie such a cool character, and the reason why he is the hero. We're laying it out right here. This is the stuff that made Ollie. This is the birth of Ollie. This is the kind of reasoning behind why he does what he does, why he's always been more of the fight for the little guy and not the big picture super villain, drawing the attention. No, he's going to the street level. We're seeing when he didn't think street level, when he didn't think big picture, when he didn't think that way, all these close people to him were either killed, maimed, massive death and destruction, all falling on his heads, all falling on him because of how he was, because he was a little bit shelled, because he was a little bit more in the partying and not the
spoiled.
The consequences.
He's spoiled.
Yeah, spoiled. Oh, big time spoiled. And it's comes back to haunt him, and we start seeing why he became who he is, why he handles stuff that he did, how he handles it the way he's handling it, and even when he started chastising himself for some of the mistakes he made in dealing with his company, dealing with the people close to him, it's again all this stuff is coming back, and it's a neat glimpse into Ollie, glimpse into his past, kind of gives you more direction and understanding to the future.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's the point where he's rebelling so much. He doesn't, the jobs he's being given by his dad has no interest in, and he's, getting let go from them all. This current one that he's on in the rig, he hates it so much that he's sabotaging things in order to make a statement to his dad. It really is. He's throwing a tantrum. This is going to come back to haunt him. I do like that we do see that he's got this shallow front to him, but when things start to go down, he does, he could have just run and got off the whole thing and, driven in a boat and gotten away. Instead, he tries to put a stop to the doorway he opened. I think there's a good intrinsic reason why he's doing it, but I also think there's also that kind of, I'm not going to let my dad throw it in my face reason too. And I like the duality of that, because he's not at the point yet where he's the guy. Like, there's points in time in this where rightfully so you want to slap Ollie in the face, and you get to see the guy at the end who's kind of hit rock bottom when it comes to the people that he was close to, the only friends that he has. And when he's dumped on the island, you can see why this would become motivation for him to make himself into something more for the right reasons. That was something I really liked about this issue, was throughout the issue, I didn't feel until the end that he was really ready to begin becoming the Green Arrow that we know and love. And I think that's something that's always made Ollie a little different, is there's got to be that part of him where from time to time you want to smack him upside the head and just say, learn something. And that's then when Ollie does, and you get to see that there is deep down through all that nonsense a guy at the core who's a good fella. And you can see why a Black Canary would have fallen for him. You see why Hal would consider him a running buddy, or in the past. We haven't gotten to that point yet in their relationship, but we're going to see that character come. But you can also see then why a Hawkman, who for years had a really adversarial relationship with the guys because they just antagonize each other to death. You can see that guy. Ollie's very complex and infuriating, yet at the same time there's that good side of him that is there. He's that buddy that you have to apologize for a lot. But it's worth it because that, you got to understand, I know him and I've seen him when he's a good guy. And you just got to take my word for it. And there's a lot of people who have to take your word for it when it comes to Ollie. I think that's who Ollie is.
Yeah, and one of the things that I still am struggling with in this issue is the question is what was the strong, solid motivation behind the attack? Was it honorable? Was it more of, I don't want Daddy to throw this in my face? Where exactly, what was the level, or was it a combination of the both of them? Because he did care about the girl. He did really love her. But if he had done nothing, she probably would have lived. Because this guy was going to go steal the oil and move on. Maybe. You never know with guys like this. He may say, sure, we're going to leave. Then as he's flying off, he hits the detonate and everybody dies anyways. So there is always that, every time I read through this, I read it a different way. I look at him in a different way. And I love the fact that I got that. And there was a couple of times when I'm sitting there screaming, I'm agreeing with Merlin saying, dude, Merlin's right. Listen to him. This is your best route. And then the other side, I'm like, no, Ollie's got this because they got to do something, because if they don't, that guy is just going to detonate and blow the place up anyways. The only chance is to maybe, stop them, maybe get the detonator switch from them, maybe get the bombs off of people. Maybe, by doing nothing, you're guaranteeing your death. By doing something, you have a fighting chance. And it's, every time I read it, I look at it a different way. And I think that's, for me, one of the powerful things about this issue. And the other powerful thing is the background stuff.
I want to go back to something you said, though. You were saying, what was the point behind the attack? Was it him? Ollie wasn't behind the attack.
What was the point behind Ollie's attack on them?
Oh, okay. I do think it was, you mean, what was the interest? I took it as his attack on them was majorly to not get slapped in the face by Dad. I also think there was that part of him that wanted to save the girl. But I do think more of it was the shame. Because I think Merlin was right. I think you're 100% correct in your assessment of the situation. He should have listened to Merlin. Merlin was giving him really sound advice, and he just was not listening because he was more concerned with saving his own face value. That's how I totally took it. And I think it's something that I think he had that oh God moment. I don't think until the end of this he really realized just how horribly wrong he was on so many levels about everything and the way that he was approaching things. I don't think he totally realized that until the very end of the issue. I don't know if you read it that way. That's how I read it. I was not thinking he was a good stand-up guy in this till the end, where I'm like, okay, he's gone through all this. Look what happened to his closest friend, to his girlfriend, who I genuinely believe he's got feelings for. I think that was very genuine. And he hit rock bottom at the end, where it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, I could not have been more wrong. I think at the end, we see a guy who no longer cares about saving face with Dad. He's really genuinely got to be faced with who he's become, how shallow he's become. And being stuck there on that island will help him kind of see life for what it really is, and it leads to become the Robin Hood kind of guy that we know and love Ollie to be.
Well, you get that really cool moment when Merlin tells him, I know you, Ollie. These aren't going to be the last people you're going to kill. And you just see the tear in his eye. You see just that pain and that emotion, especially when Ollie's on that island, just that, that lost kid. And that moment, boom, done. You kind of get the beginning of the hero theme when he's got that intensity, that fire in his eye. And you're just like, okay, here it is. Right there is the birth of Green Arrow. That is, it's so many, it's multiple layers, multiple levels of the story of the character. It's not just something as simple as he was stranded on an island. He was a spoiled kid stranded on an island. He was a spoiled kid who was stranded on the island, but it was also the fact that he got all those people killed because of his life, because of who he was. Just that reflection, you can see of those probably, I'm guessing, days of just sitting there, just thinking of what he did, dealing with the grief, dealing with the sorrow. And throughout that whole time, it's, again, artwork telling the story, not inner dialogue of him saying, what did I do? I can't believe I just killed my friends. No, you're seeing that the pain in his eyes. You're seeing that in just the look on his face. You're getting it, and as you're, visually seeing this, I'm hearing the story in my head. I'm hearing what Ollie's thinking, just the unwritten word. And it was, again, this was a great way to do it. I was like, yes.
Yeah, and that's something where all the way through, it's funny how I was enjoying the issue even though I wanted to bop Ollie upside the head, because I didn't think it was out of character for a young Green Arrow. I think what I want to see come out of this, and what I want to see in direction-wise for the series, is a gradual maturing of the character. Because I think we've spent the last year seeing a character who is gradually maturing, but we need to see more of it. Like, I want to start feeling the hero, the true hero that we know Green Arrow to be. And that's something I'm really longing for. And I think when you've got this friend of his who's going to become the villain in Merlin, I think this is the opportunity to really mature this guy and have him see the consequences of his actions. I mean, the blowing up of the boat, or the tanker and everything, where you get to see that refinery or whatever it was blow up, and all because of the fact that he fired an arrow that he shouldn't have fired.
Yeah.
And sure, his mark was dead on, but so the detonator fell into the water and it caused the accident that it did. I don't know, that was something, this issue really, I don't know if you felt this way about this issue that I did. There was something about this issue that finally felt like, I'm like, okay, this is the direction that I want Green Arrow to be going in. It's been a good book. I want to see Ollie maturing now. I want to see a direction to him where he is maturing more now. Continue the building blocks of who I think Green Arrow should be.
Yeah, and the introduction of Roy and how he kind of came into the mix was nice. I like seeing that. It's you needed to see that little piece where Roy was actually Speedy or Red Arrow or however they're going to refer to him in this universe. I was glad that we got just one part of those two together. I'd like more stories of those two. I'd like to see more of where it deviated and how everything went bad. But I do want to see this beginning. I do want to see the plus and the good. So I really like this. This was another story that it really helped my appreciation and my enjoyment of the series and got me excited for what's going to come next, because we're seeing why he's focused. Well, let's continue the growth. Let's continue on where he's at and where he's going.
I liked seeing him on the island where it's one of the things I love about Freddy's art, where you see him look rougher. Like, you see it in his hair, you see it in the way he's carrying himself, the look on his face. This is a guy who is like fighting to survive. And there's just a whole different demeanor to him. I think some of that is due to the introspection of what he's just gone through, but it's also just like the determination of, I'm going to mold myself into something else. And when he finally, 2 months later, we see him in that sequence with Roy, I agree with you. I thought that was terrific, because I'm guessing myself that Roy wasn't Speedy. I'm guessing that Roy became Arsenal. And
probably,
he's that character, and I might be wrong on that, and I'm fine to be wrong on that. I'm with you that I was just glad to see the connection between the two start to be established. I thought this was a great issue to bring that in. I also like that this Roy felt very much like the Roy, like the guy who could become the Roy that we're seeing in Red Hood and the Outlaws, who could be that guy, because that's a series that I'm really digging. So I love how this felt like it wasn't alien to that. He's clearly much earlier in his career than that, but you can see definitely the seeds of how this guy could become that fella.
Yeah.
Jim, let's go on and discuss Action Comics. This was a great Zero issue because I think we started to see some of the build for Clark to his direction. I wanted to see what was like when he first got into Metropolis. This whole buying 200 shirts.
Yeah.
Talk about investing in, but you would guess the shirts aren't invulnerable.
Yeah, only the cape is the only invulnerable part. That's normal cloth.
So which again adds to the need for the super suit that we see him eventually don, that suit of armor, because it can withstand all of this whole life that he's living. I really enjoyed how we see the formation of a hero. He's come here, and this is his chance. You'll see. He keeps saying that he's determined that now I'm going to use my powers in a way that has a positive benefit to people that are in trouble. Remembering that this guy is not as powerful as the modern-day Superman that we're seeing on the Justice League. This is a guy who can't fly yet. He leaps tall buildings. We see with those kids, he's been knocked down, and the kid ends up taking the cape and running with it. And it leads to this whole situation with an abusive father. Now, is it because the cape's invulnerable that the kid's able to do what he does? Is it because the guy's being hit with something that's indestructible that causes the kid to the kid's not actually stronger because of the cape? It's the physical properties of the cape being moved at that speed by the kid, like a normal human speed, that's causing that? Is that how you're reading that?
Yeah, completely. Imagine if he had if the kid had a completely steel boxing glove on, but it didn't weigh steel, it weighed like cloth. That's what that kid just hit that guy with. So completely around his hand was 100% protected. So there was no shockwave coming into the kid's hand. Everything was being transferred back into the punch. So it's, the kid's normal strength, but because no shockwave passes through it, there is nothing that will damage his hand. The same thing with the knife, because when he first stabbed him with the knife and the knife breaks, I was like, wait a minute, it wouldn't have, because I started, thinking about it, and I maybe overthought it a little bit, but I was like, the kid still would, it would still need the kid's own flesh to actually, break it. It would still need the kid's strength. The kid would need to be strong enough. It just wouldn't puncture him. Then I started thinking the properties of the cape itself is it's completely, by being invulnerable, there's no energy that transfers through that material. Mm-hmm. So that means it's completely, everything goes back into knife. So it wasn't even just the cape that broke the knife. It was the fact that the guy was stabbing him with such force, and that energy comes back on him, and it re-breaks the knife.
Because it's got nowhere to go.
Yeah, because it has to go somewhere. Energy doesn't stop. It has to be displaced, so it fires back on him. And so, it shows just how strong how much energy behind that guy was trying to stab the kid. Which, shows a whole nother level of brutality and, how much of a monster that is. It's one thing if you're going to just, punish a kid. Corporal punishment, spanking, variations of, grabbing a kid by the arm, giving them the goon grip, that tough grip as you're talking through gritted teeth. Wait till we get home. That's one level of abuse, and people will argue whether it's right or wrong. This guy was a whole nother level. He stabbed that kid with so much force that when it came back, it broke the knife. That guy was going for severe injury and or kill shot on this little kid. I'm assuming his son or stepson or exact relationship. It was like whoa, what the heck, man? This guy's a monster. He really deserves what he gets.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny when the foot gets caught in the tracks and you see the perverse look on the guy's face. I mean, this is the dad, right, of these kids, and he's so into being the bully and to having, obviously he doesn't have a whole lot of control in his life at all, and so into having that control that he would put kids through that. Yeah. Saying you need to watch this, look at all that. I mean, you're inhuman at that point. Wouldn't you be freaking out if you made that? I mean, I know you would be, but I mean, it's hard for me to fathom that somebody would in that moment not back down from that side of themselves, not even for self-preservation purposes, that you wouldn't panic and say, hey, I've got to get this kid's foot out of there, even if you're just doing it for the selfish reason of saying so I don't get in trouble. But he didn't even go there. For him, it was all about, what can this get for me? Wow, look, I can get the other one in line by letting this happen to this one.
Yeah, and making him watch it and say, this is what you caused, your fault, knowing that going forward, that kid will never do anything to oppose him. He will never back down. He will never stand up to him. He completely control over that kid's life for the rest of his life had, Superman not shown up at that time. That was, again, I was just like, wow, just the level of evil. And it's such a cool moment because this wasn't like a main villain. This wasn't Lex Luthor. This wasn't some future, villain coming down the line. This was just some scumbag slime ball. And you still get to see a really cool Superman moment where he is more powerful than a locomotive. And I was kind of glad that they did bring that into it, that he was able to stop the train and just that whole, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Well, he leaps in and then he stops the locomotive. I was just like, yes, this is some Superman stuff. And the fact that it is, again, the beginning, the building blocks of, these first appearances, these initial exposures of who Superman is to the world was some really cool stuff, considering we get those great Jimmy Olsen, Clark Kent moments where they're just hanging out, playing video games and just being pals. And you see that whole side of Clark where he's like, I'm a pacifist. I'm not a shooter. You shoot, I'll fly the helicopters and drive the cars. And I love just seeing those two friends hanging out.
I like when we see Clark come in with that train. That in the background, that little distant speck of him. I really liked the pacing of the art storytelling in that sequence. That was all we saw of him, and then we see feet. It was a really cool way of showing that sequence. I also want to stop back a little bit and talk a little bit about that Daily Planet sequence where Jimmy and Lois and Perry are talking about this story. Jimmy and Lois have seen something pretty amazing, but the photographic proof, being able to actually verify what they saw, isn't there. And Perry's saying, you need more info. We can go to press with this, but you're not providing verifiable facts. And I really loved seeing that debate over, it wasn't Perry was saying that they were lying. It was more Perry was laying out for them, hey, we've got a reputation of this paper. If we're going to publish this, it has to be able to be verified. You have to be able, and what they had was not verifiable. I just liked that distinction. I don't know, I get into Daily Planet sequences when they make me think, and that's one of them where it does. It just felt very real world, especially with how fantastic this is. We don't want our to look like a rag, that is just publishing any kind of rumor and innuendo. We want our paper to be to have some journalistic integrity. It's there's been mistakes made before, but this is not who we are, and this is not what we're going to be known for. You want to publish something like this? Fine. You bring me the proof, and I will run your story. And that's to me who Perry White is. That's what the Daily Planet environment should be. We all know it's true as readers, but you can't argue with Perry's logic. And that was something that I really found important in this story. I love the Superman supporting cast, and they need to have these kind of philosophical debates about him and about his world and how he affects theirs, and what credibility they need to have when first reporting on this guy who people don't know yet. This isn't the Superman that everybody waves to, wants to be like. They don't know who or what this guy is. He's a legend, until that's been verified.
Yeah. It adds to the whole, with my always opinion on Perry. He's like, with the Jim Gordon. We always have that image of what we want Jim Gordon to always be like. He's got to be the cop. He's got to be the true cop. Well, Perry's got to be the true newsman. It's got to be about the truth, about the facts, about the story. It's not sensational. It's not tabloid journalism. It's about, what the true purpose and true point behind the newspaper always was supposed to be about. Nowadays you have that sensationalism. You have the stuff where just journalistic integrity's thrown out the window. Well, not with Perry White, not him. And again, you need to have this solid Superman cast. We had great Jimmy Olsen moments where you see the young photographer who wants to, he wants respect. He wants, it's not just about money. It's also about, hey, this is who I am. I'm actually a photographer. I'm not just some kid who can take pictures of pretty women. I am a photojournalist. This is part of who he is. He wants that level to be recognized on the same level as some of these great writers and these great people around him. He wants to step up. You see Clark at his first job where he's going to bring that journalistic integrity, that same who he was and who he is into this world. And I loved seeing these intros, these openings, this characterization right from the ground floor. And you sit back and then you think what happened the year before this. One of the things I really enjoyed with these Zero issues was reading the issues leading up to this, going back and reading a couple from the beginning up and through to Zero, because you see just where this takes place. Now, okay, let's put this right at the very beginning there, right up before any of the craziness that has happened this past year. You see these intros, you see these openings. And I love that, especially with this moment with Clark, because we had such great early Superman stories when they first, launched the New 52 in action. We got to see the young Superman get the costume and, start developing his powers more, start getting accepted by the people. I loved seeing that the extra little pieces that we never had before are now coming into place.
In the backup story, when we see Eric Drekken and Adam Blake, who is Captain Comet, And that's one of the things that I really loved is that, like, we're getting to this expanded DC universe, but we're also seeing this Eric Drekken again in, like, an earlier appearance where I'm guessing, is this when he got infected and became that, like, blob-like character we saw him in earlier? I don't know what, when that all came. I really like how, this series kind of flows back upon itself and shows us things that we haven't seen before. I wonder if that Atom's going to become, and be called Captain Comet, or how that's going to go. It looks like obviously they're heading right in that direction with the character, but I'm liking that whole mystery so far. And what is it going to be like when he first tangles with Superman? Are they going to be on the same side? Is they're going to eventually, we're going to see Captain Comet become the hero that we know him to be, or is he going to be this gray area that he seems to be?
Well, we've already seen him in the series.
Well, I know, but I'm saying, where is he going to go from here? Like, after all this, is he going to be a tried and true 100% hero, or is he going to be a gray area? I don't know. Do you have a feeling for him as far as where you think he's going to be?
I wasn't thinking Captain Comet at all. I was thinking this is going to be something different and something.
Well, that's who it is.
Yeah, but I was thinking he's not going to be the hero element. He's not going to be a villain. He's not going to be a hero. He's going to be that gray line. He's going to be that, doing what he thinks is the right thing, even if it's not.
Okay, well, and what he thinks is going to be the right thing could be relative to the person involved.
Exactly.
Because he's trying to save Earth, but he's also trying to save other places. So the question becomes, does he then distance himself from our world in order to do that? And does that put him in conflict? I know we've seen him before, but what I mean is, it's funny how this story is kind of expanding the idea of his motivations. So it makes me think more of, where does this character go from here? Because this isn't a character who's going to be thrown away. He's obviously been introduced with the power levels that he is for a reason. And if we get him to be Captain Comet, it's still going to be a very different Captain Comet that we've seen before because of that. I think that's more of what I'm speculating right now. I'm not just basing it on the appearances of what we've seen before. It's kind of like looking at his background and then rethinking him. It's like, where does he go from here, and what is that role? I agree with you that I don't think it's going to be as simple as it could be. And I like that. That's to me is interesting. Where I think philosophically we're running into some situations where we're going to have to make a decision as readers whether or not we agree with him. And I don't know that we're all going to agree. And I like that. I think that's fun and interesting.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's, again, I've been seeing him as coming back as more of a major. I keep wanting to say villain, but I don't think it's as cut and dry as going to be villain versus hero. He's got this higher mission in his mind. And if you're sitting there thinking about, okay, I have to save all of these planets, I have to do this. To save this world, 1 million have to die. Well, you know what? Needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. So guess what? I'll have to sacrifice all of those people to save all of these. And that's the line that Clark will never cross. And I see these two butting heads over this, and we've already seen them throw down one time. Well, we're going to see that fight again. Maybe not in a while. Maybe it's going to be a while, but we're going to get this guy back, and we're going to get more of that type of dynamic, that type of energy.
He does imply that he's doing it for others, but that's not his sole reason. Because he says, I am not doing this purely for the sake of others, which would imply that he is doing it for the others. But he's also saying, which I took it as, he's also doing it because Planet Earth's on the list. It's my home, is how I took that. Because why else would he care about Planet Earth if there isn't an attachment to him on that level? So I don't know. It's funny. After it's clear that others haven't treated him well, and he's got to deal with that emotionally for himself. But I don't know. I just really found his whole story engaging. I don't see him as a villain at all. I don't see him as a tried and true hero either. That's why I use the term gray area.
Yeah, he's a tough line where he's going to fall. And it's funny because I really didn't see. It's a tough thing with me and him because one, when I first introduced him, when I was looking at everything, I wasn't thinking Captain Comet at all.
Did you know that Adam Blake is Captain Comet?
No.
Okay.
Remember, my Captain Comet is the second Comet.
The second Comet is the first Comet.
Well, yeah, but
they're the same guy.
Yeah,
You talk with that whole thing that happened with Captain Comet's story when he reformed and all that. It's still the same guy, but younger. Remember that was an illusion. He was telling everybody that he was the successor to Captain Comet. He wasn't the successor to Captain Comet because of what he went through. His rebirth caused him to look younger, so he was implying that he was his own successor.
But I thought he had a different name.
But it's still him.
Yeah, but I don't know. I didn't know the.
Remember
name
the first mini series. Remember that he and then subsequently how the story went. He was reborn basically.
Right.
His body was reformed into a younger body, so he just gave himself an opportunity to be a younger version of him.
No, but, I remember the story. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I didn't remember his real name, and I didn't think it. It's been so long since I read it, so I didn't remember his real name.
I'm curious where they're going to with him. I don't think because it is who that character is. I agree with you that doesn't necessarily imply that he is going to be this good guy. And I like that. That to me that gets interesting. It adds kind of a. I'm glad that they're gradually introducing all kinds of different characters from DC mythos. And even the Wildstorm characters, that I didn't know before that are being introduced. I think there's a nice blending of these characters. They're picking and choosing when to add them for storytelling reasons. And it seems like they're introducing them in waves, gradually along the way. I'm enjoying that. I think it's an interesting process that they're going through introducing them. And I think it's important to be judicious on how you introduce these characters because you're trying to build an attachment for new readers to each of the characters. Rolling them out gradually and letting us get to know them while at the same time creating new characters and new villains and new heroes like Baz, for example. I think it's an interesting balance. And Dial H is a brand new direction for that type of character and concept. And any of these new characters are introducing, I think, has been something that they've done very well. They've gotten me interested in concepts that before. I don't know that I wasn't interested in them. I just never had the exposure to, and it's fun being exposed to them. It's experimental and fun, and I'm really digging all that. But this Adam Blake is just a great example of something where I like that I'm not quite sure about him. I don't feel like he's adamantly a villain, adamantly a hero. I think we're going to see a point where he's going to have to make that decision, though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I like that. I mean, that's something that builds anticipation for me, wherever it goes. It's a good book. Let's talk some GI Combat. This Unknown Soldier story, I'm a huge Gray and Palmiotti fan. One of the things that I didn't expect them to go to was this idea of that these unknown soldiers, and the reason why they've been throughout history is when these characters die, so to speak, or when they hit these extreme situations where they die, this spirit of the unknown soldier takes over their body, and this is how they become this incredible combatant. And this I guess ghost or entity or whatever, this I don't know what you even would call it, because it's hard to put a label on what it is. Maybe you got a different idea on what it is, but when it takes over, they get these skill sets, but they're not really themselves still. And I loved how his family recognized that. Like, you're not you anymore. You know who you are, memory-wise. You've got the memories there, but you're not you anymore. And it was something like a wife. I liked it because I get into that romantic concept that like your wife would know that it's not really you, even though it seems to be you. It's not really you because there's something a bit off with the I guess I didn't expect it to go there because I've always taken it for granted that the unknown soldier was somebody who's been horribly disfigured or, had to wear the bandages for some reason. It's really that either through memory loss or reasons to like protect the identity of those around them, he's kept that identity secret, just wanting to operate that way so nobody could get hurt that knows him, whatever. There's all kinds of different reasons to justify why those bandages would stay in place. This is an interesting twist. How did you feel about this? Did you like this kind of concept or idea? Oh,
I definitely liked this. This was another title that it really helped with my enjoyment and appreciation for the book. Again, Unknown Soldier was something I was reading, and I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of neat. I wasn't knocking it. It was good stories, but it was never anything I was passionate about. I had no fire for it. Again, this shows a little bit more behind the story, gives us a little bit more glimpse into who he and what he's about. It adds to my comfort level with the character, with the title. This is a concept that I read the other Unknown Soldier story that we had, back in the old 52, and I really liked it. I thought that was kind of neat, but I was in the same mindset you were, where I was just thinking, okay, for whatever reason, the guy's got he had to have the bandages on, and he became the Unknown Soldier. Now there's something even just another level beyond this, area that this can go.
When you're referencing,
and again, just like with Dial H, how far deep can he go with this? Is he going to be able to pull from other characters and other previous Unknown Soldiers that he didn't know was around? Is he going to be in the middle of a fight and hey, the Viking Unknown Soldier could really help out here? Let's pull the Civil War guy here. Let's go with this one here and start pulling these different sects and just the power sect and just the knowledge base that these other characters have. Is he going to be able to eventually do that type of stuff? Is he going to be more than just a soldier of his own skill, his own time? Will he be a cross-generational type?
It's funny when you were talking, it was generating something with me. You were talking about in the previous continuity, you read The Unknown Soldier. Are you talking about the Vertigo series?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that wouldn't have been connected with the DCU like this would be.
Yeah, I know, and that's actually when I was approaching this, I was thinking that it was connected, that it was that kind of story, and that's why when they did The Unknown Soldier, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I read that before. That was kind of neat concept. So going into this, that's where my whole mindset, my whole idea of the character was coming from.
Now, The Unknown Soldier, there was issues of it coming out when we were kids. Did you read any of that when we were kids?
No, not at all.
So the classic Unknown Soldier, because I remember, and I don't know when it's, I don't have in front of me the dates. I remember, though, my buddy Jimmy Bradick, he was very into the war comics like Sergeant Rock and Unknown Soldier and stuff like that. And he had issues of Unknown Soldier. And I remember from flea markets reading issues of Unknown Soldier. So I don't know how current it was at the time, but that was more of how I read the character. And this is in concept closer to that. Just this whole idea. One of the things I like about this is, and how it's kind of modern, it's almost like Assassin's Creed meets Unknown Soldier. I love that game. I love that game series. I'm not saying it's a clone of that. I just kind of like this concept of him going into this scientific experiment where he's tapping into past soldiers, past versions of himself, and then they realize that the reason why he can do that is because this thing jumping into him, it's really who they're connecting with and talking to. Do you think he's really still the same guy, or that do you think those people have died when it comes in that moment, and he is now this soldier who's lived many lives?
Yeah, I think it's the whole symbiotic relationship. I think there's a piece of the guy left in there, but he's not the guy anymore. There is this essence, this unknown soldier, the mystic essence that is the Unknown Soldier that's in him. Now, I think he's in the driver's seat, but that's something I'm betting we'll see at another time when he's no longer in control, where he's no longer in charge of what's happening. The essence may take over the body. Maybe it's like he's unconscious and he's near dead. The essence can come in and swoop in and save the day. But I think we're going to see more dealings with him, multiple personality, multiple types of dealings with this. There's going to be somebody else in there. There's going to be somebody else having a stronger role because he tapped into that. He opened the doorway, letting that thing into this world.
See, I think that person's dead. I think because the wife asked the question, will you ever give my husband back? I think the husband's gone. I think this guy is able to, because he's inhabiting the body, the former occupant was, he has the memory of that person. But I think that guy's dead and gone. And I might be wrong on this. It's just me speculating on how I'm reading the story. I want to see this explored more because the way you presented it too, I'd be cool if it's that. So I'm not saying that like I'm digging my heels in on this. Just kind of my speculation is right now that person's actually dead, and this thing, this essence, whatever you're calling, I like kind of that terminology, has really taken over. I mean, I think what we're seeing here is the essence taking over. The glimpses of the past, the memories that he has, are really only from the time that he inhabits the body. Like, he'll have memories of this guy from when this guy was a child and stuff like that, but are not really its memories. It's just because it inhabits that body and it remembers many, many lives, but it's really just this soldier, this soldier that's, like, eternally reincarnating, coming back when the situation, like the traumatic situation, opens up an opportunity. Just, like, doomed to be on the battlefield always. I don't know. I'm happy with any direction it goes in. I found that story totally engaging, though. Like, I'm glad that I'm speculating about it. I care enough to speculate about this. It's become very interesting because I just kind of, I'm like, I want to gradually know what's going on. I like the mystery, though. And that, to me, is where it gets fun, when I don't feel like you're wrong in how you're speculating. I have my own ideas that are clearly a little bit different than yours. I think there's some areas where we blend, too. I think that's just a show that we both liked this issue and this direction enough that it's kind of engaging us in this series more than we both expected. I like the fact that, like, you've got this barbarian version of him with the rag on. I thought the art was really, really great. I thought that the story dynamic was really great, and I like that we're not 100% sure what's going on with him.
Yeah, even though we have this glimpse into the world, but we're still not 100% certain. And for me, I'm an Edgar Allan Poe fan. Mm-hmm. So with the Raven coming in and the Nevermore thrown out there, that was something I kind of like. Yeah, that was neat. So again, this sequencing we talked about earlier, where the panels where there was no dialogue was just some great gripping stuff. Well, here we have the dialogue throughout it, but you have the Raven kind of mocking him and just provoking him and just going at him. And again, could they have gone through this panels without any dialogue? Sure, it would still look pretty cool. You would see the guy raging and you would know what's going on. But this again is adding on a combination: the story being told, the artwork that's the visual artwork that we're getting. It's that mesh of them. This was visually as well as story wise a really cool story for me.
I like this kind of epilogue to the War That Time Forgot that they presented there. I really enjoyed the story. I love the artwork on it. I think just J.T. Krull did a great job. Ariel Olivetti on art. The whole just creative team. Rob Lay on letters. It's a great visual story, but this idea that, okay, you're isolated from people. You're there by yourself with these wonders from another time, trying to live for survival. Without that kind of engagement to the world you once knew and to the kind of human contact that we all seem to need and love, over time, no matter how much you hold on to your memories, you don't have the visuals. You don't have the ability to talk to people about them. Things will start to fade. And how he becomes less and less in touch with his own humanity and becomes more of a savage because he no longer has that kind of sense of belonging to a society that we all have. I really loved that kind of descent, watching that go on. I mean, it was a very sad thing to see him going through, but yet it fit the story. It was dark. It's a dark story, and I like those every so often. It's just a really, really cool word. I really thought that this visually was a very stunning sequence. I love that whole storyline, The War That Time Forgot. But I also love like the visuals of the dinosaurs and how that whole thing happens. Do you think this guy's permanently lost his sanity?
It's going to be if not permanent, it's going to take a lot of work to get it back, because it's I loved when they showed him remembering the pictures, and the pictures slowly were getting fuzzy and fading away, and just that world that he was gone. And this was his existence now. This became who he is. And it's about the blood. It's about the meat. It's about the animal side of him coming out. And, if he ever were to get rescued, if you ever were to meet with people again, there would be a process. It would be a slow thing to bring out the human side of him again. And who knows if it could ever come out. He would need to have that connection. He would need to have it be his buddy. He would need to have it be somebody that he knows who could pull him out. A stranger probably couldn't. A stranger maybe could bring some of the social skills, bring some of the humanity back, but it won't be the same guy.
Oh, I totally agree with you. It was a great issue. It was another example of a Zero issue that I think upped my interest in a series. Because I've enjoyed this series, but it's another one where, like, this issue, like, in this one, it's funny, it was in particular with the Unknown Soldier in the beginning, maybe want me to go back to reread.
Yeah.
and kind of see it with fresh eyes. It was a really good issue that just kind of engaged me back into this book. And I thought it was very, very well done.
Yeah, and it's why I like the Survivor TV shows. Survivor Man versus Wild, and Man and Woman versus Wild. All the different things. And I always, whenever I watch the shows, I put myself in that picture and how would I handle it? What would I do with the whole Land Before Time and everything? That just with him on this dinosaur island. This is one place I wouldn't want to put myself, just because. Just how pure, truly nasty survival it would take to go and to actually continue on, and just the animalistic nature that comes out in him. I live alone, so there's been weekends and days where especially like on a Sunday, if I don't talk to my family, I may not actually say a word out loud, because if I'm just sitting here, I'm not going to talk out loud to myself. Maybe I'll think stuff, or I'll watch TV, or I'll laugh if something's funny, but I won't actually have a conversation. And I've noticed that since moving here, I've had all day where I'll go to bed, I'll say, "Wow!" Like, hey, that's the first word I said all day today. It's a weird experience when you have that realization, and just getting and living that life. I don't know if I could handle it.
Jim, don't sell yourself short. I would put you on that
island. Thanks, pal. Appreciate it.
As long as there was a closed-circuit camera.
Oh, yeah, you'd want to see me. You'd want to see the descent of madness.
Where's Whatnot Now? Phantom Stranger, Jim. This was one I was interested in because I've never read, I think, once or twice. I've looked at a Phantom Stranger issue, and I'm going back when I was really young. Again, going back to the whole flea market thing that I mentioned earlier. We used to get boxes of just like assorted comics. I think I remember, looking through a couple of Phantom Strangers, but I was young, and it wasn't a character I remember being like super interested in. I enjoyed him a lot more in his team-ups, like in Brave and the Bold, and seeing him when he'd appear like with the Justice League or something, in more of that capacity. And I saw him more as like kind of the crypt keeper from like Tales from the Crypt, where he was telling stories more than him being like the enigma to follow. I liked the introduction to him in this. He's one of the three. We saw that woman that we've been following since Flashpoint, and her backstory and how it linked to the Phantom Stranger, and then the Question, which we haven't really seen explored much more. So now this is another piece of that puzzle where we get to see the Wizards and how that's all connected in some ways to Shazam. I do like with the New 52 and the way that they're crafting this world. There's a lot more interconnectivity between the various characters that are gradually being introduced to this world. There's not these characters that are kind of dropped in and we're like trying to pretend that they've always been a part of the world. They're really being crafted from the ground up. The world's really being crafted from the ground up to contain all these characters. So that kind of makes me wonder what it's going to be like when Billy meets the Phantom Stranger at some point. Is there going to be a recognition that, at least on the Phantom Stranger's end, that Billy's power source is something that put him in this role that he's stuck in of betrayal. And here's the question: can any hero ever really trust the Phantom Stranger? I think the story's saying no.
Well, he's doing it for redemption. He's doing it to earn his, freedom. Every time he does something good, every time he helps out, he's that one piece closer. So on one hand, yeah, you can trust him, but it's weird. He's being rewarded for being selfish in a way. He's only helping because it gets him freedom.
But he's not helping.
Because he wants to step up and be the hero.
He betrayed Corrigan.
Yeah.
So he's not helping. That's the gray area. He thought he was helping, but the truth of the matter is he was set up by the powers that be to betray Corrigan.
Yeah, so he would become a Spectre.
Right. So he lost the coin for doing what he did to get put in this place to begin with. He betrayed people close to him, which put him in the position of becoming the Phantom Stranger, the coins that were put on him, because of his own greed. In order to lose those coins, in order to eventually gain that redemption that you mentioned, that sense, that act of peace, he has to go through this motion of wandering through history to do these things. I mean, look how much of his life he put forward before losing one coin. I mean, come on.
My question is he able to go back and do change, he lost the one coin there, but could he end up going back in time and changing and losing another one? Is he stagnant to one particular time zone? To me, I see him being able to jump around time and fluctuate to the current Phantom Stranger can go back in time and change something, and that'll affect his outcome.
But Jim, where do you see him going through time at all? Because he actually lived all that time leading up to it.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just something in my head just tells me he can jump around time. It just seems like a power that he would have. Even though I know we haven't seen any sign of him being able to do it, just for some reason in my head, I always see him being able to, boom, boom, and teleportation type of time travel and just that kind of freaky, weird power sets. That's the kind of stuff I see the Phantom Stranger having.
Except, where have you seen that?
I haven't. This is just me. One, speculation, and two, just kind of when I think the Phantom Stranger, that's the kind of stuff I think.
See, I see him as the Phantom that people don't notice, blends into the environment. Then when he makes himself known, it has an impact. He's like this Phantom that is doomed to watch everything going around him, and when he appears, you should be really worried. And I see him in that role, in that capacity of being this harbinger of nonsense.
Superman shows up, you say, yay! Phantom Stranger shows up, you're like, oh no, what now?
Yeah. And please tell me you're not here for me. I really liked this issue a lot, though. I liked the character. This was one of those, I was kind of like, when they said Phantom Stranger into a series, I was kind of like, woo, how am I going to feel about this one? I don't know. Because I just haven't had, I've more seen him as being this observer. And what book I really loved him in was Madame Xanadu.
Yeah.
That was a great use of the Phantom Stranger in that book. So that started to get me invigorated for this. Okay, where are we going to go with him in current DC continuity? And I really like this kind of wandering guy who changed his cloak to make it blended a little bit more to current society. That's how he got the hat look. It was originally a hooded cloak, and it was something that he was forced to don and wander around. And I think that's what lets him become the Phantom, right?
Yeah.
The cloak.
It's kind of the mystic side of it.
And I don't know, I really enjoyed this. He has no control over what is happening to him. He's given this mission after an eternity. Finally, he's excited because something different has happened other than just having to wander. See, that's the funny thing. I love things like Highlander and Doctor Who, and I loved from Valiant the Eternal Warrior and his whole family, actually, of three warriors, Armstrong, I should say, from Archer and Armstrong, his brother, and then the Time Walker. These characters that live forever. But then you start to think about it. There comes a point where this guy's clearly disconnected from society on any level. So we go back to what you were saying earlier when you were talking about GI combat and the isolation, how it could make you go a little bit mad. This is a guy, he's in the midst of society, but he's just observing it. He's not a part of it. What does that do to you? How do you function? How do you continue to live on? Talk about the torture this guy's going through. It's wow. What could he have possibly done to deserve this? I just don't see the punishment befitting the crime.
Yeah, I think this is a little overboard. This is just, it was terrible what he did, but really, this level of, this level of just punishment, this level of torture, this is just beyond anything that you could honestly say is just, which does always get me thinking about the Wizards and who are they? What are they about? Are they, if these Wizards would do something like this for what he did, what is going to happen with Billy? What is going to happen with Captain Marvel? Is it going to be, we already know it's not going to be the golly gee Willikers kind of Captain Marvel. There is going to be a little bit more of edge to him because Billy has a little bit more of edge. Well, maybe the Wizards even have more of an edge to him. Maybe there's something darker about them. So who knows where that's going to play out. And he was something that I never connected the Phantom Stranger to the Wizards before, and I don't know if this is something brand new or not.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I like this Phantom Stranger because this is my Phantom Stranger. I have a complete understanding of where he was, where he's going. He was always the character that I knew absolutely nothing about. And I kind of always thought that's how they played him off, that you never really know who the Phantom Stranger is. And it's a cool concept, and it's really, it always made him intriguing to me, but I never had any passion to him. I'm getting passion for this character because I know who he is. I have this connection with him now.
They kind of toyed, remember The Kingdom? They kind of toyed around with the idea that he was Wonder Woman and Superman's kid, and then that sent him back to, you know what I'm saying? Remember that?
Yeah.
That miniseries after Kingdom Come? Which, that's obviously something that's out of continuity that was sort of brought into continuity in JSA. This, to me, I'm with you. This is kind of a ground floor to Phantom Stranger for me, too. He was always that enigma you're mentioning. I didn't know a whole lot about him, other than he would show up on the scene, and usually it wasn't a good thing. And he ultimately was, like, he would give advice and stuff, but then really wasn't able to help out. Like, they would ask him, because he was like this cosmic being, hey, can you give us a hand? No, I'm just, doomed to observe or something like that. I mean, he was like one step up from like Watcher territory from Marvel. I always loved the Watchers too in Marvel. He was a little bit more interactive than they were, but it was always kind of like that kind of thing. What do you mean? Then why bother? I like this though. I like that I feel for him and his hardship that he's going through. I was like I've always thought like things like people getting their hand chopped off for stealing and stuff like was harsh. You hear about countries where that kind of stuff happens, losing a finger, losing whatever. I'm like, what he's going through? Take both arms. I mean, at least that means I'll eventually die. Living like this is not life, what he's going through. And it's, talk about excessive. What could he have possibly done that could warrant living like this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't comprehend it. Even, you think about Pandora, where she opened the box and released the sins into man. Okay, that's not a good thing. She released those sins into the world of man, but it's not like she maliciously said, hey, I'm going to do this.
Different, right. Yeah, I agree with you. Totally different, right. And that's what I think with him, too. I think this guy wasn't a good dude, but I don't think he was, like, a genocidal maniac.
Yeah, greed is a terrible thing, and he stole from his loved ones. He stole from the people he shouldn't have. But there's still a level of punishment, dude. Man, relax a little.
What happened to Corrigan, though, that whole thing where he was set up? Corrigan, again, Corrigan was always supposedly, in different tellings, like this corrupt cop who became like the spirit of vengeance in a way to kind of make up for his own deeds. There's been different versions of how that story was told, too. So that I'm just throwing out what my understanding was of Corrigan. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of people listening like, hey, I'm a diehard Spectre fan, and Sean, you're off on some level. I totally agree with you for anybody listening. My biggest reading of the Spectre, I read some of the Ostrander and Mandrake stuff where it was Corrigan. I more read the Hal Jordan as the Spectre, just because I was a Hal Jordan fan. I ended up following that one. And then obviously all the stuff with Crispus Allen. So my understanding, Corrigan as a Spectre was very similar to my experiences with Phantom Stranger. He was more of a guest star in the experiences with him. So his backstory is not something I have a rich history in. This is another example of where, wow, I really enjoyed seeing his backstory for the New 52 unfold. This is where I think they're doing a great job of bringing in their rich history. It's giving me a lot more confidence in the New 52 that they are gradually going to introduce a lot of our old favorites, just that they're doing it piece by piece. Instead of just throwing them out in a way that people have no connection to. Like your comments about how this is your Phantom Stranger, I feel that way about the Spectre. This is my Spectre now. I'm getting to know these characters. I'm getting attached and interested in their story. And when Corrigan has an appearance in some other book, because there's not a Spectre title coming, or another appearance, I want to see him have a confrontation with the Phantom Stranger again in this book. That's something that they've set up for me here that I'm finding interesting, that it matters to me. This is a book that's interesting. What do you feel about that? Are you interested in issue 1 of Phantom Stranger now? Because this is really the launch of this new title.
Oh, big time. When they did the free comic book day where we kind of got the glimpses of all their origins, that had me going, that should be kind of interesting. And then, but I didn't know where it was going to go. Once we have this issue 0, I was like, okay, I see where they're going to go with this. This is going to be another level of, okay, this is definitely going to be a different type of superhero story. He's going to have these interactions. He's going to have these supernatural connections, but it's not going to be your classic dun-da-da hero moments. And it's that difference that I'm looking forward to.
Now, his eyes, the reason why they're white like that, is that because of what happened to him with the searing of the coins? Because when we see him, well, no, I guess when we see him when he first appears afterwards, his eyes are normal. It isn't until he puts on the hood.
Yeah, because that's him, the blinding of the vision
Right.
to the Spectre, to the Phantom Stranger.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by this character. I really do find him interesting. You know what I like about this, too, with it being Corrigan again as the Spectre? There's a possibility, if anybody has a use for him in the Batman world, of bringing back Crispus Allen as a cop.
Yeah.
Which I would love to see again, because I was a big fan of Gotham Central. I loved him there. I liked him with Montoya, if they bring her back, although we haven't seen anything with her. So
The only glimpse of Montoya we've seen is her on the Wall of the Dead. Mm-hmm. The memory of. There was that picture of Montoya in one of the Batwoman issues.
So do you believe she's really dead?
See, I was thinking she was disappeared and she was being in the training to be the Question. But with this usage in New Origin of the Question, I had no idea what to think of Montoya. Because I hope she's not dead, because she was always a great character. And I was hoping she'd be the Question, because I liked her and Batwoman as the Question-Batwoman combo.
Yeah, I'm with you. I that one was one that pretty much so shocked me. I'm hoping that there's a story to be told with Montoya yet, because that's a character who I got a great attachment to as a supporting cast member in Batman, then in Gotham Central, then as the Question. I thought her whole journey was terrific. I would hate to see her lost, because I thought she was a character who's kind of added something to the DC universe. So I'm hoping that down the road. Here's the funny thing. With any character like that, if they don't already have a plan for her, I know that if somebody has a pitch of a great story with her, she can be used. I think that's what they're looking for with a lot of these characters. It's let's introduce them and bring them in a way that makes sense, where there's some substance and value to what they're doing. Now, is every one of those going to be a home run hit with the fans? No. But that was the case before as well. Not everything is a home run hit. I like that they're trying new things to reinvigorate these characters and bring back some characters that have been kind of shelved for a while into, like Phantom Stranger, for example, into interesting concepts. I'm with you. I'm really excited for issue 1 of this book, which if you'd asked me walking in if I was going to feel that way, I would have said I don't really know, because it's not a thing that I've had a super intent. I've always liked the character concept, but he's not one of those characters I was saying we've really got to have a Phantom Stranger series. Like, that's something we need. Reading issue 0, I'm like, oh yeah, we do. I want to know more about this guy. That's where I think that they've added some nice twists and turns with the character. I am into it. I am very into it. So, and that's something that I'm glad, because sometimes I like being surprised by a concept. And this is one of those, I've got to be honest, I walked in not thinking I was going to feel this way at the end. And I thought it was a nice, pleasant surprise. Did that Free Comic Book Day issue make you walk in with the expectation that you were heavily interested in this, Jim?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, the Free Comic Book Day really was a great intro to the character and got me, what's going to happen here? Because I saw the origin there, and then you get to see the continuation of it in issue 0, and then in issue 1 we're going to see him journey throughout the universe or throughout time and whatnot.
Yeah, see, I didn't walk in like I'll be honest with you. In the first week, this was the last book I read, because I really wasn't I was interested, but not jumping through hoops. I will tell you this. Issue 1 will be higher up the stack because this really, I was like, whoa, what a great way to end, because it was the last one I read, and I ended up really having a great appreciation for what was done in this issue, and they really sold me on the concept. So anybody who avoided this one, maybe if you were in kind of a similar place I would, you might want to give this book a shot, because it really surprised me. It was really good.
Yeah. I was a little bit surprised at how quickly I read this. This wasn't the first read. This wasn't a first night, but this wasn't near the bottom of the stack. This was a nice, solid middle of the stack, read through, because I was curious about what was going to happen with him, what they were going to, what more in depth they were going to give us on his origin and who he is and whatnot.
Yeah.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
Once again, sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Remember, DCBService.com, 50% off all new DC trades and hardcovers this month. Make sure to go over there and get anything that you were thinking of pre-ordering. 50% off is an amazing deal. Over at InStockTrades.com, they're also doing this great end of the world sale. This is month 9. It's all DC this month, 45% off all DC comics. And their DC Archives editions are 50% off. So it's a great opportunity to stock up on those things you've been waiting on getting at an amazing deal. And I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. I want to shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. 0 month is here, and I'm always interested in hearing what titles people picked up. Also, were there any 0 month issues? And I want to shout this out to the listeners, and please call in if this applies to you. Were there any 0 month issues of titles that you weren't reading before that you picked up and it made you say, hey, I think I'm going to give this book a shot? I know there's some new titles that are coming out this month, but also some of the older titles that have been out for the last year. Which of those titles, weren't you reading before and you're like, the 0 issue sounded interesting, I picked it up, and hey, I might be on board to try another issue after this. Is there anything like that, including the new books? I would love to hear from listeners on what's doing that for you that surprised you, because I always find that interesting when there's something new, and why. So please feel free to call into our show voicemail line and send in those comments. Jim, our next episode, we're going to continue our exploration of 0 month. And what we're doing is we are going to explore every single DC 0 issue, just to give you guys kind of a flavor for how we're feeling about the new 52 1 year later, which is really kind of cool about all this. So we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. Talking about Hawkman.